on the exam. If you weren't here yesterday, I highly recommend watching the video from yesterday so that you have everything that you need on your study guide. Okay? All the ones I circle are the ones you have to do. I'm doing the rest with you because I do one, you do one. And here's the thing. On the test, I'm even writing this out. I'm telling you you're going to have to use quadratic trinomial. And if you were to open your interactive notebook, you'll see in that factoring review, or that factoring thing, that that's the label for it. So I'm going to steal Chris's right now. And if you look at your factoring, it says quadratic trinomial. That's what I put. So you'd be like, oh, there it is. Or you would just use your study guide. So if you didn't have your study guide to use because you didn't bring in a Kleenex or write it down, then you can go right to quadratic trinomial in your interactive notebook, which you already have. Okay, so lots of resources for you for this exam, which starts tomorrow. You'll have 2 days for it. It's all multiple choice. Here we go. But you have to show your work if you want partial, if you want any credit. So, I know, but that's the thing though, like you can not show work, but if you get it wrong, then you lose all the points. So like I want to be able to give you partial points. So this is what? Multiplies to negative 20 and adds to 1. So again, what multiplies to negative 20 and adds to negative 1. So for the sake of notes, though, I'm going to write them out so that you can use it on the exam. So I know some of you are pretty quick with it, but I'm going to write them out so that you can look at something when you're doing these problems. So I have 1 and 20, that's not going to work. 2 and 10, that's not going to work. 4 and 5, that is going to work. I just need to go over here and figure out what signs. So I put like figure out the signs, kind of just so that you have notes of that. Which one would be negative? The 4, very good. So then I found my magic numbers is what I call them. And because A is 1, so because A is 1, I'm just going to put a little note. Because A is 1, which is right here, I can go right to the very end. These are the easy ones, where I have x minus 4 and x plus 5 is my answer. So make sure everything's nicely written down so that you can use that as an example on your exam. Remember, all you do, 20 divided by 1 is 20, 20 divided by 2 is 10, 20 divided by 4 is 5. That's how I'm getting those numbers. Don't play the multiplication game. Play the division game. It's easier. Any questions on that one? Are you sure? Okay, this is the one where a lot of people tend to struggle, is this guy. But don't let it be hard. I promise it's a lot easier than you think. You just have to take your time. So I have what multiplies to 3 times 20, which is 60. So what multiplies to 60 and adds to what term? What number? 17. Very good. Okay. Anyways, let's go in order. I have 1 and 60. That's not going to work. What's 60 divided by 2? 30. If I add or subtract them, will I get 17? No, so cross it out. Do it again. 3. What's 60 divided by 3? 20. Good. When I add or subtract them, will I get 17?
Yes.
Yes, so I found them. They're right there. I found them. Now I just need to go over here and figure out my signs.
They're both positive, right?
Well, if I think about that, 3 plus 20 isn't 17.
20 minus 3.
Good. I need a negative 3 in order to make 17. I need a negative 3 to make 17. So those are now my numbers. But A is not 1. This is the hardest factoring problem out of all of them. So make sure your notes are very...
Wouldn't the multiplication have to be positive 2?
Yeah, so they would... Yeah, so does that work?
I think I got it. I finished it. Wait, isn't it 5 plus 12?
Hold on. Yeah, so we got to keep going. That didn't work. Let's go back. Hopefully you're using a pencil. So do you see how, though, like, the way that Mika just saw out of that, she just said, though, that negative 3 times, what was it, 20, wouldn't get me 60. It would get me negative 60. It didn't work. So I actually have to keep going. 60 divided by 4 doesn't work, but what about 5?
5 times 12.
Good, so that's the one that's going to get me 17. You have to be careful with those ones. See, I even got tricked for a second. Okay? So again, they have to be able to add to 17 and multiply to 60. So that kind of worked, but there was a sign error. We couldn't figure out the signs to make it work. However, this will be easy. 5 and 12 will be our magic numbers. So I apologize for that. Hopefully you're using a pencil. Now is where we would go and use those magic numbers to break down these guys. So here we go. I'm going to break down this into 5x and a 12x. You can do that because when you add them, you do get 17. That's why you can do that. Bring everything else down. Bring down the 3x squared and bring down the 20. I'm going to stop here to make sure that you have everything written perfectly because again, this is what you can use. So this is going to be beneficial. Or you can use the interactive notebook, which already has one. Okay? Now I'm going to group the first two in red and then group the second two. Piece by piece. What is the greatest common factor between 3x squared and 5x? You see how 3 cannot divide into 5. So is there a number?
Just one?
Just one. What about the letters? X. Very good. So I can pull out an X. I'm actually going to write GCF here so that you know. We're going to divide each one by X. What is 3x squared divided by X?
3.
3x. Very good. What is 5x divided by X?
5.
Just 5 because they cancel, right? Do you have questions on that step? I want to make sure that, again, this is the hardest problem on the whole test, in my opinion. So if there's something to ask, please ask now so I can explain it. I'd be more than happy to. Okay, let's look at the next one. What's the GCF of 12x and 20?
4.
4 is very good. Yes, 4. Now here's a tip for you. If you're someone that gets stuck on this, and Tommy's looking up the tip now. Okay? If you get stuck, think of this, please, because this might help you if you get stuck in factoring. My goal is 3, right? Because we want the same thing. My goal is to get 3. The only way to get 3 is to divide this by 4. So if that is a tip for you, if you get stuck on that type of problem, my goal is 3. So I have to divide by 4 to get there. That's the only way it's going to work out. So I'm going to bring that 4 on the outside, and you'll notice you get the same exact answer, which is our goal. We wanted that. So get out your 2 highlighters and highlight what's common and what is left over. So I'm just going to give you a second to make sure all of that is nicely written down. I'll even zoom in so you can see better.
That's the full answer or no?
We're almost there. So your 4 is your GCF. That's kind of why I put it right here for you to see that these guys are your GCFs. So my GCF is X for the first group and it's 4 for the second one. Now your last and final step is just to write out, again, 3x plus 5 now is my GCF, technically. So I have 3x plus 5, and what's left over in blue?
1x plus 4.
Good. And that's my final answer. So I'm gonna take. It could be the other way around. The only reason why I do it this way is because you're factoring out a GCF, but it doesn't matter in what order it is. I'm just gonna make sure you have everything, because that was the hardest one.
Oh, shoot.
You okay? And that's why we need tissue boxes, you're right. Okay, because that's the last box.
Can I correct?
You can, that's what you can use it for, though. In the beginning of the year, you could have brought it, which I did put it in there. You can literally cut your study guide up and put it on your Kleenex box.
Well, how are, this one we gotta cut up?
So that you have the ones that we did in class, yeah. It has to be your handwriting.
Oh.
Okay, so like, I can take Jake's right now and cut out this problem and put it on my Kleenex box. But you can put it on there in a way that you can see both sides of it. Just let's change the top of it. Yeah. I'll show you. Oh, I forgot to bring an example. I'll go get one. Do you have questions?
Can I make like copies so it's just one side so I don't have to flip?
Yeah. So that's a great point that Jake just made. I was going to suggest that. If you really don't want to keep flipping back and forth, you could make copies of your key and put it on the interactive or put it on the Kleenex box if that's what you want. Where you don't want to keep flipping back and forth on your Kleenex box, you can make copies of your own key and then have it where only one problem is shown. That's fine. Whatever you want to do, be creative. Okay? All right, moving on. You guys like these ones. This is difference of two squares. So in the directions, it will literally say difference of two squares is what you should be using, which is great. I never have done that before, but I wanted to make sure that you guys were successful in this test.
Is this cubed square root?
Yeah, this is the square root one. So what is the square root of x squared? 1x. So I'm going to circle that. That's my magic number. What's the square root of 36? 6. That's my magic number. Now here was the fun one. You guys liked these. It's just going to be your magic numbers with different signs, and you're done. So x plus 6, x minus 6. Easiest one on the test. I love difference of two squares. You just have to be able to recognize it. So like, I know that I'm labeling, like, hey, this is difference of two squares, but on an exam, like the SAT, you're going to have to be able to recognize they're both perfect squares. Okay, factor by grouping. Again, same process though. We're going to group the first two in red and then group the second two. Always include that sign. So the positive is with this 7. It's because sometimes it could be negative, so be careful. So let's look at the first one. How many x's can I take out?
Just one.
So if I take out 1,
Oh.
there's more than that.
Oh no, take off 3?
So can I take 3 away from 2?
No.
So what, you can take 2. And something to put on here for you guys, maybe circle it and put that it's always going to be, the GCF will always be the lowest exponent.
Oh, you could have said it that way. I would have figured it out.
Yeah, the lowest exponent. So I'm going to take out x squared. So here's my GCF. I'm going to write that out. I'm taking out x squared and x squared. And it always goes on the outside. If you don't include your GCF, it's not equivalent. You have to have it on the outside. So here we go. X cubed divided by x squared.
Just X.
Just x. Does anyone have questions on how we do the division of exponents? All you do is subtract them. 3 minus 2. Okay. I have these ones, they cancel, and I'm just left with 6. Do you have questions on that part?
Oh.
Okay, so now here, look at this, guys. The goal is to get just x. So what must I divide 7x by to get just x? 7. Do you see how that trick might help you? Okay, so I must divide each one by 7. I have to in order to get the same thing. So it's a trick. Okay, so I'm going to bring that 7 on the outside. And again, I'm left over with x plus 6.
It's just 7 because they don't both have X.
You're right. Absolutely. So again, highlight one group and then highlight the other. Can anyone tell me what they think this is going to be in the very end? Go ahead, Jake.
X squared plus 7, close parentheses, and then X plus 6.
You got it. So I'll give you a second to make sure all of that's written in there. It's just not going away. I keep finding it. I just love math so much I don't want to leave. I come sick. I'm dedicated. I'm dedicated to you guys. Huh?
Dedication is key.
No, I'm gonna get
Dedication's
sick.
key. No, you're not. I'm fine.
I'm not gonna be able to take my quiz.
Test.
Yeah.
You'll be fine, trust me. Do you have questions on this? I would love to answer them. All right, we're moving on. This one you guys also like because it's pretty straightforward. Multiple choice on the exam. you are going to be able to cross off a couple of these ones for this one. 'Cause remember, it's soap. Same sign, opposite sign, always positive. Always use soap for difference of 2 cubes or sum of 2 cubes. Okay? I'm even going to highlight that and highlight the sign so you know that it has to do with the sign. Here we go. Here's where you need to mark this down. Math 4 is your calculator. If you get stuck and you don't know how to do it, you have to press Math 4. So what is the cubed root of 125?
5.
Very good. And then it's always going to be x. What is the cube root of 512?
8.
8. Does anyone not know how to get that in the calculator? Math 4, 512. So here we go. And try your best to write this down as best as possible. I'm going to have 2 groups of parentheses. I have the same sign, which is positive, opposite sign, always positive. I kind of just set up my signs to help me out. I'm using those magic numbers. I have 5x and I have 8. For this first group, I have to square the whole thing. Well, what is 5 squared? What is 5 squared?
25.
25. And then don't forget your, wow, I totally messed that up. 25x squared. Now this guy, we multiply them together. So I have 5x times 8. What is 8 times 5?
40.
40. And then don't forget your x. This guy, if you ever get stuck, it's always your last magic number, which is 8, squared. What is 8 squared?
So it's before.
Good, and that's your answer. And again, on a multiple choice exam, you should be able to cross off 1 because the signs are probably going to be different.
Wait, for the middle one, it's 5x times 8.
Uh-huh. Yep. So make sure you got all that down. Again, the other ones are your homework, so if you're waiting for people to copy down, you could be starting that next problem for yourself.
Which one do we have left?
Okay, we got a couple left. We got about 10 more minutes, and then you should have time in class to work on this, which is the goal.
We use headphones?
Once we get there, yes. But do you have questions on that one? All that's already in your interactive notebook, but it's good to also see. Now, I see some of you have your interactive notebook out and you're using it right now to kind of guide you, which is I think is an amazing thing that you're doing because you're practicing what you can do tomorrow. Okay? This is rational root theorem, and one of your interactive notebooks literally says rational root theorem. That's going to help you. So, it says factor this given that x plus 2 is a factor. If it is a factor, I know I can do synthetic division. It's going to help me out dramatically. If you hate this, just do factor by grouping. So there's 2 options. You can either do synthetic division, or you can just start doing your factor by grouping. It just depends on what you like to do. Okay, so if you hate doing this, you could just do factor by grouping and still get the same answer. Or if you remember, you could put it in your calculator and find it.
I don't think it's possible to actually factor by grouping for all of them.
Not for all of them, only when there's 4.
Wait,
So
so you
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, there's also 21 that isn't possible either.
There's 4.
So you can just plug
Yes, but
right
there's
into your
a-
calculator,
yes, but
right?
there's
You don't have to do
one
that
in each
L
pair.
thing, that confuses.
There's a 1 in each.
Okay, so this one you can't. So it's not always possible, but most of the time it is. Most of the time it is. But let's actually do it though. Let's give it a try. How you should be doing it. I was just telling you if you get stuck, there's a way there for you to find out how to do it. So remember, the first step in these problems is always to find out what makes it 0. What makes this guy 0? What'd you say? -2. So that's your first step. Because now we're going to do synthetic. We like synthetic. Synthetic's fun. For me, at least. Step 2 is synthetic. I'm going to use my 1, my -4, -4, and 16. Yes.
You can plug in this too, why didn't you calculate and do it that way?
Not for this one.
That's,
What is that?
give me a minute.
It's called something.
The, oh,
I think-
X.
I'm just wondering, I want Tommy to finish his thoughts. He was right.
Oh, that's direct.
Yeah. So when it says direct substitution, you can do what you're thinking of. So very good. I'm going to bring down the 1. I have -2 times 1, which is -2. I'm going to go by this fast because this part should be quick. -4 minus 2 is -6. What's -2 times -6? Careful with your signs. 12. Add straight down, I get 8. -2 times 8 is? Good. And I get this 0, which is great. Now, how do I write this out? I have x squared minus 6x plus 8. But then don't forget about, I'm going to highlight this piece, x plus 2. And now this became a question because you're factoring still. When I ask you to factor, I want it in factored form. But remember what I told you about factored form. It has to only have one x. Like that says x squared. I need x. So we have to now do what we're used to. You guys were good at this. What multiplies to 8 and adds to -6? What multiplies to 8 and adds to -6?
2 and 4.
2 and 4. What about the signs?
-2.
And -4. They both need to be negative because when you add them together, you get -6. Last step, I promise. Can anyone tell me how I would write that out? I have my magic numbers. A is 1. I can go right to the end. Doesn't anyone remember how with these numbers? When I factor.
Isn't it?
Do you put like -2
Yep,
and like -4?
you got it. Awesome. Okay, so again, now we're just going to bring down this x plus 2, and that's our final answer. Now, if all of you were like, how am I going to do that in the exam? I'm not going to remember that. Put a note to yourself. You can use your calculator. You can type that in your graphing calculator and get all 3 of those.
Wait, we just did, does that go with, synthetic equation?
Yeah, this is part of synthetic. And I put a note on there to use synthetic on your test.
So everything is like 8.
This is all synthetic. And then this part was just factoring. We can factor this. Yeah, this is factoring.
Oh, because I did synthetic, I don't know.
Did you get the same answer as me?
I got x squared minus 6x plus 8, and then I put the remainder 0.
Yes, but we want to keep going. We want to factor it completely.
So we're gonna do that extra step.
So I'm going to do that one extra step right here. Okay, now I want to show you an alternate route, which I think some of you are trying it right now because I saw you typing in your calculator. Please go to your calculator. If you are going to get stuck on this, if you already are looking at it like, no way I'm going to remember that, okay, you need to know how to do it in your calculator. So put like a little note to yourself that you can graph this and get your answer because you're going to have multiple choice. So you're going to be able to graph it. So be a good test taker. Okay, so go to y equals, if I can get to it, and let's type it in. So y equals, I'm going to type it in. I have x cubed, oop, clear it out, x cubed, let me steal this from you, minus 4x squared.
No.
I highly recommend knowing how to do this if you don't know how to do that last problem. Minus 4x plus 16. Now watch what happens when you press graph. Do you see now? Look. Again, our answers that we just solved for were negative 2, 2, and 4. Hi, Brandon. So you can now use that as a tool for you when you're doing your test. You can say, oh, I know my answers are negative 2, 2, and 4.
Is it Zoom 6 to get?
Zoom 6 to get out of there, yes. Okay? Do you have questions on that?
Nope.
So again, put in a note there that you can use your graphing calculator. Flip to the next page and that should almost be there.
Not like that, but I got the same.
Perfect. You need 2 different color highlighters here. How are you?
I'm good. Sorry
Good.
I'm bothering. I had to come
You're
drop
fine.
my stuff off.
You're
Just
fine.
falling.
You're fine.
This this is a big class.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You
yeah.
have bigger ones?
This is like my normal now, 15, yeah. I think we had 12 last year, yeah.
This is you.
Maui's still here, did you see?
Really?
He's there. He's got a new tank. It's upgraded. Okay, so this is when you need 2 different color highlighters to help you out. When is the function greater than 0? Okay, use your pen or your hand or something. Is that going to be above the x-axis or below it? Greater than. Above. So I'm going to highlight these pieces here.
What?
So above 0 is those green pieces on the top. Or if you even want to highlight the whole top part just so that you remember, that's fine too. It doesn't really matter.
It's a waste of ink.
It could be, but I'm just trying to make sure that you understand that the top part is your green part here, that greater than 0. And the bottom part is that lower piece. So if you want to remember what each one is, then you know. So you need to describe all the parts of the function that are highlighted in green. So I'm always going to put a note here. You're always going to use your zeros. Always use zeros. Well, here are my zeros. -5, -2, and 1. Those are the only things you should have in this problem, and infinity signs. But okay, so greater than 0. I'm putting my point here. This is where my finger's at, because this is when it starts getting greater. From -5 to what x value is in green? Good, just -2. So -5 to -2. We put that little u there for an and. Now again, I'm not going to describe this piece because it's blue, but this piece is green. So from 1 to where?
To infinity.
Very good. And I'm going to label that out for you so you remember that's infinity and this is negative. Now switch gears and look below your graph. Left to right, negative infinity, and where does it stop?
-5.
Very good. Negative infinity to -5. And then just keep going until you hit blue again. -2 is where we're at. -2 to where? 1. Do you have questions on that piece? You're just telling me, when did I make money? I made money from year 1 on. I was very successful. I just kept making more money and more money. When did I lose money? Between this year and this year, because it's below the x-axis. Okay, and last one here. There are 2 ways. Again, you can do this problem. You can graph in your graphing calculator and call it a day, or you can factor it. So I'm going to show you how you would do it first, factoring. If you want to factor. What multiplies to -72 and adds to -1. So it says use a graphing calculator or factor. If you already hate this idea, go to your graphing calculator. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to show you on your graphing calculator because I think it might be easier. I'm going to highlight graphing calculator because I feel like it's easier doing that. So let's type it in your graphing calculator. Go to y equals, clear it out. I'm going to use Chris's here because I need it. X squared minus x, x squared minus x, minus 72. If you don't know how to use a graphic calculator, you need to ask now because like this is going to be where you're probably going to need it the most. That's fine. It's okay. As long as you can see your zeros, you're good. So I'm going to press graph. As long as you can see where it hits, you're good. What point is that? Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So negative 8, I found. I'm going to put that on my graph.
I don't think I got that.
1, 2, I'll come to you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's negative 8. And then where was the other one at?
8,
Careful.
9.
9. Okay, so 9. I'm going to graph that one, which is here. 9. And then just sketch it out. I'm not asking for a perfect graph. I'm just asking you to sketch it. Because now you can do exactly what you just did on the very previous problem there. But you had to find the graph. I highly recommend using your graphing calculator. If you had to factor, you would have found out that negative 8 and 9 are the ones that get you this answer. So you would have been like this. I'm going to write this out just so you have it. You don't have to do it this way, but I'm going to write it out. You would have gotten 8 and negative 9. So you would have gotten x plus 8 and x minus 9, which means that I get x equals negative 8 and x equals 9. So if you were going to do a factoring, that's what you'd have to do. If not, you have to use your graphing calculator. Yeah.
Huh? Oh, I thought there was only one answer to x because of the way the problem is started.
Yeah, so we're getting there. We're getting there. So it's asking now, when is the function less than 0? So am I at the top or the bottom of my graph? For less than? The bottom. So I'm going to describe from this point all the way to this point is my answer. So what point to what point? Yeah, negative 8 to 9. This is my final answer. I highly recommend just using your graphing calculator to get the graph. And we have a lot of time right now. We have about 15 minutes where I can show you how to personally use a graphing calculator if you need that. Okay? Otherwise, you're going to have to factor, which some of you don't like that. So you plug it in, sketch it yourself, and answer the question. Okay, so what is a function less than 0? It's going to be between negative 8 and 9. Questions? All right, the rest of the time is yours. You have a long time. I can come around. I can help you personally. Whatever you need to be successful. Remember, Kleenex box tomorrow if you want to use your study guide, please. I'm going to just pause this and then I'm coming.